So, welcome back to another episode of Dyson Sphere Program. Hope you guys have been enjoying the series so far. If you guys have, if you could be so kindly, smash that like button if you have not already. And if you would like to consider supporting the channel, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button, as it really does help out. And it helps the channel grow. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns for me, leave those down below. So, let's get into today's episode. So at the end of the last episode in Dyson Sphere Program, we finished off tearing up a bunch of the factory and kind of just about to get started on sulfuric acid. I know somebody did comment there is a couple, I don't think there's a couple, but there is another way we could potentially get all the sulfuric acid we need, but I pretty much did all this with the idea that we were going to just produce everything. Maybe in the future, if I ever revisit Dyson Sphere Program, and I really hope to once the new update comes out with the PvE content, then I'll probably do something like that. But for what I pretty much worked out for this factory, that's not what I ended up doing. So here you can see me trying to figure out spacing for everything and getting things to work. So we needed 100 and honestly, I think it was 135 sulfuric acid plants. It is definitely a lot, and one thing to note is it required like 8 belts of stone, which was such a pain. And this is actually, I think, the first place in the new factory that you're going to see me use the belt compressor or belt stacker. I don't really know what to call it, but the thing that puts more things on a belt than it can handle normally. And so that's one of the ways I was able to get this build to work without having to completely refactorize it. And I actually didn't realize that right away, because at first I was like, oh, I'll make it work, I'll just have 8 belts of stone. But then as I was putting things in, I was just like, I mean, I might have been able to do some weird like belt lacing, but I didn't want to try to do anything weird like that. So instead, what I ended up doing is I just, as I mentioned, used the belt stacking, and then it pretty much was able to work. So for this build, this video is definitely going to be very focused on this particular build, mainly because it was such an extensive build to do, but also just the way we kind of worked at it. And so placing the belts was kind of a pain in the butt. I kind of got the blueprints to work a little bit, and we'll take a look at that here in a minute. But just kind of the way I was laying things out, I had to keep kind of going back and making sure that we were going to have enough capacity on the belts, because at first I was like, there's no way we're going to be able to support, I think it's 40 machines in a column, so 40 on one belt. And it's difficult because it's not just per second, but we also calculated everything in terms of minutes. Because sure, we can calculate things per second as well to make sure, and then multiply that out, but it's really making sure that we're able to clear the belt over a given minute as well. Because even if we could handle it, some of the items we were able to handle at every second, but over the course of a minute, the build up, particularly the stone, we weren't going to be able to handle 8 stone every 6 seconds, so 80 stone every minute, and then 80 times 20, so 1600, because one blue belt supports 1800, I believe. Yeah. And so we could technically support double, and by that I mean we could support 2 columns of the sulfuric acid machines off of one. And you'll actually see my very creative approach to getting enough stone inputted. It's not really revolutionary, but it's interesting nonetheless. This is definitely one of those areas where I kind of, not that I threw out, everything was nice, aligned, even, everything looks super good. And I'm sure there's other places. that I kind of threw that mentality out, but I just kind of gave up on like aligning all these sorters and making each machine basically have the identical one to all the others in the system. I just kind of was like, well, we're in a groove. Because right when I was recording this, I was listening to music and just trying to get it done. And I was able to get the blueprint working for this. However, I did run into several issues, and you're going to see that. And I didn't realize the problem until probably a while into this recording session. That I can't have blueprints crossing the different tropical zones, which I found completely bizarre, but I didn't realize that until way later. Luckily for us, once we get sulfuric acid functioning, we'll be able to make a few things, and then we can also begin tearing up a bunch of this area as it's going to be, well, outdated quite quickly. But also I need the area to build the new chemical area because I didn't really plan on putting it anywhere else. And the problem with being on this planet is we've kind of filled up a lot of the water, which is fine, but we've run out of easy, quick, like leveling soil to flatten. That did present a challenge in that I had to find more, but it didn't completely eliminate the problem of getting it, but it was whatever. So here you see me trying to get it to work, and I don't know why it wasn't working at first, but notice that yellow line that you can, yeah, it's pretty apparent. That yellow line signifies the change in the tiling system. So if you ever notice, I mean, it's kind of subtle right there. How it becomes more extreme as you go into the different zones. But for whatever reason, it doesn't like me. At least this is what I'm assuming. If I'm wrong, definitely correct me in the comments. But it appears to not let you blueprint something right onto that line, and it kind of gets angry at you. And I was very unsure as to why it wasn't letting me. And I was like, oh, okay, it's probably because things weren't aligning. And I was just like, okay, whatever. It was probably, I was like, oh, it's probably the spacing or something's off. And at that point, I didn't even see or realize it was the line. And I really wish it was a little bit more apparent now. Okay, yes, anybody who's been watching the channel for a while should know that me reading directions is, yeah, that doesn't happen. So I went ahead and was like, okay, why is this snapping weird? Why does this not want to be placed? And so I was looking at my controls, trying to find out, okay, is there a button I might have hit by accident? I was like, this should work. But I was like, no, it's snapping weird. It doesn't want to work. Which, okay, that snapping part, I don't know if it's related to that, the whole zoning, like the zone line. And so here I am. It looks like I'm going normal speed right there, going through the controls, because I was going literally control by control. I think at this point I opened up Reddit to try to figure out and if there was any controls. I honestly just could not figure it out. So I was like, whatever. Let me keep trying it. Could not get it to work. And then I was like, it still won't work, won't snap. Or was snapping, but I was like, wow, what's it snapping to? I was unsure. But then I kind of realized, oh, maybe it's the zone thing, and then I was like, whatever. So I hand placed all of these because this section happened to line up right on that transition area, and I didn't want to try to blueprint it. But I did find that I could. I know that comment of how to do it was several episodes ago, but this was actually really the first time where I really kind of remembered it and was like, hey, okay, let me try it. So here you can actually see me connecting up the stone needed for the sulfuric acid. And so as mentioned previously, each belt can only handle 1800 per minute items. We needed, I think, 10,000. I don't have the numbers pulled up in front of me, but I believe it was 10,000 stone per minute is what we needed for the whole system. And it worked out to, I think, 6 or 8 belts of stone. which, okay, great. We could almost get it to work, but for what I found, I was like, okay, we're gonna need pretty much a supply hub just in itself, to bring in the stone. And so at first I'm like, oh, we'll use the one we're gonna ship out of, because I was thinking, oh, this will be plenty, but no, I vastly underestimated it. So I did have to go ahead and build some more cargo ships, and I had plenty of logistics robots left over from last time in crafting. I didn't do a great job this episode of making sure that my internal crafting system was constantly crafting. The scene of all of those logistics little bots is incredible. I really like seeing it. I'm definitely thinking the next build I do, or the next playthrough I do of this, I really want to do a, like, as robotized planet as possible with those. Now, I know that's kind of the point of Endgame, especially to remove belts and, kind of modernize your factory. I don't know the efficiency, like, belt to bot, like in Factorio, where bots were superior for the longest time, and then they made performance of belts pretty decent. Still not as good as bots, but definitely more usable in the late game. I'm not really sure the utilization of resources in terms of like computer power and stuff, as to whether bots are superior or belts are, or if they're fairly close and you could really use either. If anybody has the answers to that, if belts are the superior endgame item to use, or if bots for everything is the superior. Well, and I say bots for everything is in like input output within reason of a production chain. Now, you can't totally get away from belts. Now, I guess you could if you really designed your factory to purely be bot and to completely remove belt altogether, but I'm pretty sure you're going to have to use some belt to get it into the stations here. But anyway, I digress. If you've kind of been following this squirreliness that I've been setting up for the stone, I basically am pulling 3 full blue lanes out and compressing it onto one. I'm not sure if this is the most efficient way to do it, but it worked. It was getting the numbers I needed, at least on that little belt output reader. It was hitting high enough. And so here I get everything connected and I go, oh crap, I forgot one. Well, I didn't forget one, I just ran out of stuff. Now, I did realize that I didn't actually need to compress it as much as I did. I probably could have gotten away with it, but then I was like, thinking, because the original math I was doing was based off of one column of 20, not one column of 40. Now, I didn't actually need to compress the one I'm currently compressing, because that's the outermost one, which only does have 20. So the amount of stone that's on that belt is sufficient for those 20. Now I ended up adding enough to support 40, but it doesn't need that much. As for the other three, the other 3 lanes of stone, I do need enough for 40, and we'll see me haphazardly place things. I've kind of gotten into the habit of certain areas are going to get super organized, super clean, belting, and all sorts of things, and I might eventually come back and clean this area up while we're waiting for the Dyson Sphere to build, but we'll see. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is, once we get everything built and put together and we're just literally waiting for the Dyson Sphere to be built and or research, I think what I'll do is I'll probably just do like a time-lapse thing. Probably a little bit quicker than this. Actually, probably double the speed of this. And this is at 4 times the playback. So I'll probably do some sort of like time-lapse of us building the Dyson Sphere. Or maybe even doing maybe complete the one we currently have, and then maybe just do a random star, make a Dyson Sphere there, and just do a time lapse of that from start to finish, and throw some I don't know. I'll figure it out. If you guys have any ideas for what we should do as we kind of approach the end, definitely leave any suggestions down below in the comment section. I try to read all of them. I don't always give all of them feedback, but I do try to read all of them just so that way if they were helpful, then I try to implement the knowledge I learned. Doesn't always get implemented right away for a variety of reasons, whether or not because I recorded more episodes during a certain recording session, and so by the time I read your comment, it will have been after the fact. Sometimes I am able to read and then act on the information right away. It depends. I forgot what I was gonna say. I was gonna say something else about that. I don't know. Probably wasn't important. So, pretty much what you see right now, me standing around, was me looking at my spreadsheet, figuring out, okay, what's the next step, and the next step I chose was water. Because to set up the amount of refined fuel we're going to need, that's going to be a pain in the butt. Well, I need to double how much oil we have right now. Not pretty. Although, technically, the production chain that I have going for the refined fuel is based solely on... Oh, you know what? I might have to go back and look at that now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know if I'm doing the proper recipe. Anyway, so I need, I think it's 110. And I'm like, oh, you know, we'll be able to fit a good number here. Let me just get some foundations. And then I realized, oh, wait, we don't have any soil. So I'm like, okay, let's see how many we can put. And I'm like, this isn't gonna work. So I was looking for, okay, where do we have water left? And I found that kind of narrow, somewhat, like, condensed area. I'm like, you know what, screw it. We're just gonna place these here. We'll get everything connected with the belt. We'll worry about making things look pretty later. And, you know, I'm kind of the same way when I'm programming. After a certain point where I'm like, okay, I want to make everything look good from the get-go, I go, you know what, this isn't going to take too long. Screw it. Let's just get things to work. And then if I have time left over, we'll make things look good. Usually they don't. I mean, anybody who knows anything about programming knows that more often than not, it results in, if it works, it works, and don't ever go back and fix it, because, or don't go back and change it, not fix it, because if it's working, don't mess with it, because it might suddenly stop working. Not that that's the case in this. Nothing will, you know, break if I move things, but I don't want to go through the hassle of moving things. If it's already working, why move it? At least if I don't need the room or anything. And sure, it probably upsets some people's OCD. I am sorry about that in advance. But I will try to be better. I will try to make things more OCD friendly. I'm sure you guys will keep me to that. I will say though, I feel like playing games like this, definitely, if you don't have OCD, or at least if you don't have diagnosed OCD, I feel like if you even have a hint of it, you'll play a game like this for a while and you'll be like, oh, I'm gonna make whatever spaghetti factory. But then I feel like over time you subconsciously kind of grow your OCD. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like the more you play these types of games, the more you start to notice like little things that you'd otherwise just completely ignore. Maybe it's like pseudo OCD. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I really feel like that's the case when you're building these types of games, or maybe it's just a intrinsic thing that's a part of them. So pretty much here I'm doing the same thing we did with the stone, where I'm setting up a bunch of water. I compacted it, and I forget the number we needed to hit. I think it was 3,200 units of water on a single belt. And sometimes that's just as much as changing something around or getting a combinator like we did there. And we were able to get 3,400 is I think what the reading was. Because we needed 36. Yeah, we need 36 per belt. 36 of these water fountains per belt. And then we needed 18 per combiner, I think. it didn't work out to exactly that math. I did change it around, and occasionally I would do, as you can see, I definitely don't completely know the most optimal way to get all these belts to combine, but I did a good enough job, in my opinion, as the output works. It hits the numbers I need it to hit, and so that's really all that I was caring about at that moment, because I was getting pretty tired when I was recording this. Because for those of you who don't know, the last several episodes have been time lapses of me recording this well in advance. Well, I say well in advance, but like 2 days. And then I record this. Well, editor me, which is me right now, is doing all the voiceover and things. Like 2 days later, so my brain has kind of shut off from DSP, and I don't have any of my notes pulled up. So I have no idea what I was doing at the particular moment, or rather what I was thinking. Although, I do have some recollection of kind of the squirreliness that was ensuing. Mainly just wanting to get this done and ready so that way I could kind of get the snowball rolling, because I really felt like once we got all the systems primed, like all the bare bones refining of everything on Beta Arundi 2 ready to go, we could just fly into getting everything plugged back in. It is important to note that there are a lot of key systems that I shut down when we destroyed the factory last episode. Mainly the reactor, or the fuel rods. Those are no longer being produced. I have to manually go insert resources. There are some buffers that I can kind of throw some resources in to get it going again, but it's no longer automated. I have to probably hook those things up. I know we made the magnets in the last episode. There was a couple other things. So anyway, so this is the oil, the refined oil system that we made several episodes ago at this point. So I was trying to figure out, okay, let's get this to work, and then I noticed those lines, and I was like, okay, well, we can't quite put it here, but perhaps we could maybe put it there, if we got it to work just fine. And so here I'm just looking at the star map, trying to figure out, okay, how can we get a lot of the surface material, and, well, find a planet that we haven't tiled over already. I figured the best place for that would be Beta Arundi 2, because it's a fairly flat planet. However, there were hills, so, you know. But I do have to, the kind of that comment earlier, I'm not sure if I was doing the right recipe. I'm gonna have to go back and look at my notes to see if it wanted me to do the oil to refined oil recipe, or the refined oil plus coal to more refined oil, and to see what the difference is in terms of the amount of machines, because I'm guessing if it's the refined oil from refined oil plus coal, it's going to be a lot more machines, but I'll have to triple check to see, because I know it's quite finicky. Alright. So I think that's pretty much where we're going to call it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. There was a little bit of exposition, but I feel like, you know, a little exposition never hurt anybody. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did, you guys know what to do. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Consider subscribing, as it really does help out the channel and helps get the, you know, yield channel out there. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns for me, leave those down below, and I will do my best to answer them, at least if they merit a response. Not every comment does. Some comments are just, you know, hello, which is fine. If I get a chance and remember, I try to say hello. It doesn't always happen. Usually if it's a longer comment, I do tend to read those, but those also tend to be more informational and informative. Yeah. If you guys just want to say hi, leave that down below. If you don't, well, that's fine too. Other than that, see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. Peace out.